All right, I think we can go ahead and get started. Um, Welcome everyone to the first event of 2021 from the Sales and Marketing Council of Metro Denver and Colorado Springs. I am Becky Hasher. I'm with Bluefish Design Studio, and I'm the 2021 chair of the Sales and Marketing Council in Denver. I want to first thank our annual sponsors, Ferguson BAC, Wells Fargo, Colton Mortgage. And this is one of the many events that we are going to co-host this year with the Colorado Springs Sales and Marketing Council. We're super excited to partner with them on some of our events and to bring just wonderful programming to all of our members. So with that, I'd like to introduce Lindsay Taylor. She's the chair of the Sales and Marketing Council down in the Springs.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for the intro, Becky. So yeah, as she mentioned, I am the chair for the Colorado Springs SMC, and we are super excited to be partnering with Denver on this educational class, among some others that are coming down the pipeline for the rest of the year. And I too just want to give a quick shout out to our annual council sponsor, Campbell Homes. I would certainly appreciate the support. And without further ado, I think we'll go ahead and kick off the presentation with Mollie.
Great. Welcome, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started. So happy 2021. I don't think I've ever been so happy to see a year go by and a new year come in, but it certainly has been a roller coaster ride, and we're only in January for 2021. So it's definitely interesting times today. So let me just pull this up. It's fun to see everyone's faces too. So welcome. Okay, I'm gonna get this here. Let's see, there we go. Sorry, guys. Okay, hopefully everyone can see the road ahead. Okay, so we're gonna dive in. So I came to Denver, gosh, it was February, just before all the new excitement was going on. And we went through a bunch of trends for Denver. And I'm going to go back and we're going to review some of what happened in 2020. And then we're going to, in comparison, we're going to look at what's ahead for you guys in the future. It was interesting. Some of the things that we predicted were spot on. And then there's some new things, of course, because the world has changed a lot since February, had we all known. And we're going to touch on just some new trends to think about as well. So I also wanted to add in some things. You know, one of the benefits of what I do is I get to see a lot throughout the country and collaborate with, you know, just great experts like many of you. and just share some of the latest and greatest sales platforms that are out there and kind of some of the best. We certainly have seen a lot of innovation. One of the most inspiring things I've seen in this last year is just, God, how resilient everybody's been and how quick everybody's responded, and who knew? So a lot of things have changed for the good despite what's gone on, and so we're gonna dive right in. Okay, so all of you know Meyers, Metro Study, you know, the whole platform's now under the name Zonda, but our goal is all of these things. It's figuring out the market, who's in that market, where's the demand, shopping patterns. We're going to share some of the consumer preferences for this last year in comparison to what consumers want and how that shifted from the previous year. And so it's kind of interesting to see some of those trends. And then, of course, with Metro Study and Zonda, we've got the nation's largest database as it relates to all things housing. So it's great. We're here to help you. We do a survey throughout the year, which we're going to cover today. And that survey, just so you know, the sample is new home shoppers in your market, thanks to the builders. I think we have a total number for Denver of about 2,500 respondents. Just so you guys know, to be accurate, we need about 100. So it's really, you have a great sample both for 2020 and a great sample that we're going to benchmark from 2019 and then say what it means for this next year. So I hope it helps. Before we start, I thought this was interesting. I always go to not only our primary research that we do, but I'm always looking for trends between trendwatching.com. And then I also will go to Google Trends. If anybody hasn't tried it, it's really fun, but you can kind of see where trends are popping up. And they always do once a year. And I thought this was a perfect time to share it. But once a year, they share the top things researched online for 2020 and just a little story about the year we just came out of. So it has a lot of great implications to, I think, what it means for home, our lives, and all of that. And so I'll weave some of that in. So I'm going to dive right into this. It's going to take me to a clip, and we're going to just watch this.
The most human trait is to want to know why. And in a year that tested everyone around the world, why was searched more than ever.
The spread of the coronavirus has passed a significant milestone.
And while we didn't find all the answers, we kept asking. Some questions inspired joy, others excitement.
Life in the bubble.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I don't know what an improper fraction is.
Keep all of those distractions out of the way.
We found toilet tissue, y'all.
Oh my God.
Put it on there and start it up for me.
What are y'all doing?
Yeah!
It's still March. How many days in March?
Some questions made us cry.
You know, we've been through our ups and been through our downs. I think the most important part is that we all stay together throughout. I love you guys.
Some made us worry about this spinning rock we call home.
Fires were detected in the Amazon rainforest.
Why were so many lives lost?
Almost 1.5 million people have now died of COVID-19 worldwide.
Why are we still asking the same questions?
George Floyd repeatedly told the officers that he could not breathe.
So why do we still have strength to continue?
I believe in your power. I believe in our power.
Chants of Black Lives Matter echoed from thousands of protesters in cities around the world.
Why are we not defeated?
We have made too much progress, and we are not going back. We are going forward.
Planes are starting to arrive in Beirut full of international aid.
Firefighters from around the world arriving in California.
There are over 100 coronavirus vaccines in development worldwide.
This is one of those times when people look out for one another and have each other's backs.
We kept going for those who showed us the way.
Think about how you would like the world to be for your daughters and granddaughters.
Remember, the struggles along the way are only meant to shape you for your purpose. Press on with pride and press on with purpose.
Why is it that this year showed us its worst and we still found ways to triumph?
An incredible feat for Maya Gabriela.
Naomi Osaka, U.S. Open Championship.
Can't let Corona stop you. Can't let quarantine stop you.
So until we get to every answer, we're still searching.
Okay, so I thought, I thought it was just a fun look back at 2020. It was definitely a tough year, but I think all that stuff makes us stronger. But in short, the top 5 things, of all things searched in 2020, really much of this changed our world. Obviously, the election's been a very tumultuous, interesting process. I do think at the end of the day, we have a bright future. The coronavirus certainly is all over it. It's changed our world, and I think in a lot of ways for the better. We're going to talk about that. And then certainly the loss of Kobe Bryant I think it's still devastating to today. But if you look at things like security, more time with family, all these things that have changed how we work at home, our, kids at home, it's really impacted not just the world we live in, but I think you'll see some changes there. So Thank God it's 2021. It's been an interesting month. I sure hope, it smooths out a little bit, but hopefully I will see a better one. But we're going to talk a little bit about just some of those things. But I think the one thing we can say is, home and community have never been more important today. And there's been a new emphasis really on home and family. Work and school has come home for so many. And I think just the idea of work and school accommodating that in your home is just a new concept. One of the things I proposed in our trending last time, and I've been working on this for 5 years, was the idea of giving your kids the best education, not just in your school district, but the virtual platform allows you to get the best lectures in the world. And so I think that whole virtual platform, while we want socialization for our kids, is going to open up a whole new thing for where you develop and where you build homes, and it's no longer only the best school districts win. I think there could be a whole new push, which is really going to change how we live and where we live and where we choose to buy our homes, and frankly, the value of that land and what our choices are. But the last one is another one, and you'll see, the third place we always went to, that great restaurant we love. And for California, we're still on lockdown, so I still dream of those great restaurants. Although I would tell you half the restaurants here in Southern California are just staying open and trying to be extra cautious. And there really is not a ton of enforcement. I hate to say, but to some degree, I will say we sneak out and we'll grab dinner in some of those places. But, I just, that third place in making that work at home, but still within the affordability, because despite all of this, prices have just skyrocketed. I was looking at your prices, and you'll see this in some of the data, not only just in the home prices that people are looking for, but just what's happened to that. So it's really interesting. But I would be remiss if we didn't cover just some of the impacts and what that means for 2021 and housing. So long-term threats, there certainly are some ahead, and obviously the economic downturn continues as it relates to things like we still have not seen full job recovery, and the potential, of really starting to see evictions and things like that. Time will tell what this meant. We have more than tripled our deficit in the last year, and we had a deficit where we couldn't afford to pay the interest to begin with. So during the prior administration, they actually put a dent in the actual deficit itself by paying down as much as they could, but it was the interest that they couldn't keep up with. So it shows that it's rising, but in fact they were paying it down. So it'll really be interesting to see what that does to us over the long term. Investment challenges for sure. My bigger concern is, will we not just recover the job losses that were there, but will we actually see more? If we don't get some relief, I think we could. And again, it's just not enough job recovery. We have international migration impact that still physically exists today that impacts some of those markets. And then of course, the second home market impacts are really starting to evolve and just to a whole new platform. And again, as I mentioned, just rising debt, not just our own national deficit, but rising debt, just consumer debt in the household, especially for all of those households that aren't working. And then last but not least, again, we could start to see some evictions until we get that next relief bill. And even if we do get that next relief bill, what do all these relief bills do once we don't do another relief bill? So it's almost like we have band-aided this and sort of kind of transferred that Band-Aid, and at some point we're going to have to pay back that credit card. So this is the worst part of it, but let's talk about a whole new focus, and that is what's been positive. And we do have a whole new reality with family. I cannot tell you how many people I hear on TV, in person, a story about how they just have really enjoyed having that time at home, getting to know their kids and all of that. It's been amazing. I will tell you, for me, who travels quite a bit, that has been the silver lining in all of this. And I feel like I spend more time with my clients today because this is so easy to do. I see their faces so much more often, and it's just a natural, hey, let's jump on a Zoom, and it's like we're in the same room. Although I do miss being there in person with all of you. So there's a whole new focus on home and how we use home, right? So just, again, board games are back. and that third place, bringing it home, is back. And I'll show you some of the physical replications or things like that that you'll see just in the real numbers. And so from a housing opportunity perspective, the vaccine is finally here. So we should see a lot more recovery in 2021. And the horizon's very bright as it relates to getting back to normal. Low interest rates is probably the biggest wild card on the market. It is why we have seen such substantial price growth. And so when you look at those low interest rates, to go from 3.75, I think we were at, and we got all the way down to 2.25 at one time. Now we're at about 2.5. 1% on $500,000 is pretty substantial. It's about a 10 to 12% growth in home price. So the challenge and the concern, or the opportunity, depending on how you look at it, is if those rates stay low, we still have not fully caught up with that. So there's more price escalation, I think, to happen. But I think you guys have seen about a 7% growth in price. But I think the other part to this is if it goes back up, then what? So how do you strategize? And we'll talk a little bit about that too. How do you strategize and make sure to protect yourself so we don't see falls in pricing, and that we're really looking at what the right thing to do for 2021 is. And we have ridiculously low supply. It's really just keeping up with that. It was interesting to me to see where supply has dropped out and some of those things as I look to your markets. And certainly it's different depending on the market that you're at. But here's the really cool part. This is the part that is so interesting to me, is consumers are as resilient as our industry has been, and they're changing quickly, and they're embracing innovation, and they want change from us. And so it's such a great opportunity to introduce new solutions. They want that innovation. So I think there's certainly been a lot of innovation, but I would tell you the real key is we don't want to make so much change that when obviously COVID is gone, it's like, well, what do I do with that? But I think that change is going to be here to stay in so many instances. So let's look at the new home shopper. Interestingly enough, you've seen some pretty substantial changes in your shoppers in 2020 versus the prior year. And I do think that carries on till about mid-year this year, but we will start to see a little bit more growth in the older population. So what happened last year was the young boomers, and you had a much smaller percentage of mature boomers, but young boomers actually halted. One, they don't have to move, but two, it was a threat to their life to not only list their market list their home and have a lot of people come through their home, but also to move. And so we saw that buyer profile actually drop quite a bit in 2020. Your number one shopper last year was tweeners. And that's that heavy family market. Well, your young Gen Y is now they're actually now 26, so they've gotten older, and you'll actually see your number one shopper today, and they're now entering into marriage, family, and some of that stuff. And I think you're going to see, as numbers report, I think you're going to start to see marriage drop down to slightly younger ages. Right now, the average age is 27 for marriage, 28 for children. But I just think we're getting back to very strong family values and some of those other things. So it's been really interesting to see this number really jump for you. And then, of course, too, as tweeners, it's literally reverse. Then mature Gen X, and then young boomers as far as the percentage of shoppers that are out there. So that's a really big shift, I think, in sort of how you look at the market. But let's look at the close details. So I put Denver 2019 here and 2020 here. And so you can really see the shift here in age groups. It was largely 25 to 64, but you can see a much bigger number here in the 25 to 44. But here's where you'll really start to see some shifts. So mature Gen X, 22 to 17, young boomers dropped from 20 to 14. And then we start to see this big jump here, which is that young Gen Y, again, ages 26 to 35. When we get to the life stage, you'll actually see some of the bigger shifts are 25% of your traffic dropped to 18, and you actually, for young couples, went 11 to 15%. And young family climbs up just a little bit, 25 to 28%. But it's really in this category where you saw a big shift. And I do believe a lot of the mature couples slowed. But if you remember, part of this was demographics, as I presented last year. So Gen Y, the youngest Gen Y is now 26 years of age. If you see them getting married and forming relationships around 27, 28, they really enter the shopping world at about 26. Under 25 years of age, whether you're Gen Y or Centennial, not today, it's like 1%. And you can actually see that here. In 2020, this actually jumps a little bit more, but it's really interesting to see that. And that's again, family formation happens. So a much bigger emphasis here with a younger population. So we had forecasted that 2020 would really be when the young Gen Ys and Tuners really kick in, and it happened. It's amazing. Boomers are still a very big number for sure in population, but again, they don't have to move, and I believe COVID has sort of slowed them in the market. But they'll be back, I suspect, by mid-year in a much bigger force. So it'll be interesting next year when we look at that to see if that's correct. Pets in the household, especially due to COVID-19, especially those single households, we saw pet adoption rise dramatically. And again, there's lots of implication to home and things like that. So pets in the household are up 15% in 2020 based on our data. And things like, this was interesting, it was a pretty big increase for things like, we asked, do you want to have the pet washing station inside the home? Well, now it's so much harder even just to do, the PetSmart and some of those other things. And so having that hot and cold feature in the back really went up over, I think I've got the numbers there, 47%, that they would pay an extra $800 for that hot and cold feature. And it definitely doesn't cost $1,800. So that's a great opportunity to include. And more than half of those pet owners treat their pets like, I call it royalty or like family. I think I want to come back in my next life as my dog because she certainly is a princess. Other trends that we forecasted, multi-generational housing has definitely gone up this last year. In fact, real households that are actually multi-generational households went from 7 to 10%. So that's about a 30% increase. And I would emphasize things like this plan, and I've got a couple of other opportunities or things. When you do multi-gen, it works very well. Just make sure you always pull that multi-gen suite forward. There's 2 reasons for that. You can give access right off the entry, or you can give a private access. And the preferred, by the way, is actually entrance in off the home itself, second to off the end. But it also allows you to do a little side patio here. It gives them easy access that you can separate from. But the most important thing that I've seen the biggest mistakes in multi-gen is when they try to put this in the prime real estate here. And this is the consumer who's actually buying this home. So they still want this area to be terrific. So you really want to preserve that as a great space and make this space super private. And that will be very successful. I would estimate when we look at the number of people now looking for multi-generational homes, I have those stats, 32% will consider or will for sure be accommodating their older parents in their next home. So they want to know that if they had to, they would actually have their parents live with them. So not just visiting, but would actually accommodate them to live in their home. I changed that question actually a little bit, and that was a really interesting stat. In fact, my recommendations, I think last year are, I would have one multi-gen plan where you can in every household. The key is, and there is a lot to getting it right, where you spend the money and things like that. If you access inside the home, really that consumer wants, whether it's a parent or 21 plus year old children, they're going to use the kitchen inside the house, but they want to have their own living room. They want to have their own bedroom so they truly can lock off. So there's lots of tips and tricks. Feel free to reach out if you're working on that. I also wanted to look at the top 10 selling communities for 2021. We looked at that for 2020, and we have seen a shift there. And so what we are seeing is a more kind of value design, drive to qualify communities that are single family detached. Last year, the top 10, we have that were actually attached and they were higher density. This year it's 40%. But what I love about this year is we're starting to see just a little bit more pushing of density and pushing of design, which Denver is long overdue. I don't think you have to be downtown Denver to now start thinking about some really creative solutions. So when we look at those top 10, you'll actually see the 40% that are higher density. No surprise, it's a better location, and you actually can push that density. And then as you go to these value box locations, and some were more value design and some were more value box, and I hope nobody's offended by where I called out value box versus value design. But I do think it doesn't have to cost more to actually make great looking product, great living product, and things like that. In all cases, a lot of it has a lot to do with pricing. So when you look at, these your first one, it's the high twos, right? And when you look at some of these guys, you're looking at 3 stores, and it's as high as up to 5. But as you get to these to like 8, you'll start to see it's a better location. It can support it. And of course, they're 3-story detached towns. And again, just innovative, creative design for that location. So we're starting to see a push there. And then the other one is just stacked flats in Denver in the low 2s. I mean, to get to the low 2s, that was a bold move, and direct construction costs are certainly tough to do when you've got 2- and 3-story stacked flats. But they made it work, and it is selling very well. So with that for 2020 and 2019, when we look at footages, they didn't change dramatically, but we do see a slightly higher percentage in the 3,000 to 4,000 and a slightly higher percentage here in that 2,000 to 2,500. We did see a little bit of a drop here, but still, nonetheless, my recommendation is still focus on that 1,500 to 2,500 where you possibly can, where you're getting into those drive to qualify locations. I think that's where they're driving to get that bigger footage for sure. And so when we look at prices in 2020 versus 2021, the interesting thing for me is just seeing the drop off, obviously, of these lower price points and really starting to see that push here in that 450 to 600. And then also seeing the push here. And that's just a product of what's going on, no pun intended. Prices are getting higher and we're trying to be more creative. And I think we're starting to see it's about 20 to 30%. And you'll see the exact numbers that are saying, hey, I can now drive farther out. I want more footage, and we've got to figure this out. And then it's really what consumers really want is just more function out of their space. And we'll see that too. So the one thing I would say, especially with interest rates where they're at, we're at a volatile time with, will we see more job loss? We're really kind of teetering on which way we're going to go as far as the economy goes. So obviously smart product design. Denver is, I think, one of the leaders in the country. Frankly, I think they rival some of the best locations for product design. I go there constantly to look at some of the great stuff you guys are all doing. But it's so important to understand sort of where that demand is and who's actually buying it, because it is very, very easy to figure out. And then just part of this and part of what we're here to share with you today is know what they want and really know what they'll pay for. The real key is just be careful not to load up too much on options and things like that, and really focus on the design side of it, because that's where you're going to get paid the most. It's also going to be where you get protected the most. And we'll talk a little bit about where to spend that time. So last year, interior style was certainly the top piece that was most important to consumers, and it still is. But one of the big things that's happening, obviously, as a result of COVID-19, is actually what climbed to number one was just functional space. We all had to figure out how to get that third place at home. We all had to figure out how to have multiple offices. We all had to figure out, again, just all those new things we were doing at home. So it's interesting that that just climbed right up. But the interior of the home is where we spend most of that time. How you merchandise it is crucial. How you get that design right. It really protects the fate of all of your communities. So continue to focus there, in addition to obviously providing homes at a real valuable price point. The one that did come up, despite the fact that we're seeing a slight increase in size, and it's very slight, is just, size was the least important, and it continues really to be the least important today as well. So we haven't seen any huge pieces there. So with that in mind, I looked at the numbers here, and 57% did rate important and very important to have larger. We'd all like to have a larger home if we can, but function was that focus. 34%, which that's come up quite a bit, almost double 2019, said that they wanted a rural location. So again, that's pushing to the fringe. 34% versus 19. They're looking for more space. They're looking for more privacy and really a healthy setting, I think, where their kids can get out and play. And also, I think, just different ways to figure out how one of the two or whatever can stay home to take care of school and some of that stuff as we're going on. Telecommuting and virtual office are just so easy today. Even with, Denver has been hit a lot less than some of the other states throughout the country, but it's just so much more acceptable if you want to do the virtual office and you want to be home more, which is kind of great. I think it's a different sort of quality of life that we've learned over time. So your consumers are really looking for that third place. Now, this is an extravagant home for sure. This is one of the top gold nugget winners, and this certainly is an accentuation, but you also can do it for different sizes. So modern certainly is rising throughout the country, but this is also a tiny little house. This is like, I think it's about 800 square feet that takes it the other direction. I mean, it's small, it's cute, it's quaint. It's certainly on a different lot, just adding that extra feature. I've seen Mike Woodley did an amazing product in San Diego. It's about 28 to the acre, 3-story flats over garages. And those flats had this feature in it. But again, that the importance of that third place and space, COVID going away or not, people are just going to demand privacy, protection, and things like that. So those little extra features really can make a difference in absorption. And yes, they will pay for them. As it relates to product types, so 1 in 3 people said, look, I'll take a small lot detached home, but I still need the driveway. So that was really the big piece to it. Of course, the largest percentage said, give me the traditional single family detached. But 30% said they would do more of that small lot home. So that 45 by 65 or 70 was certainly acceptable. Here was an interesting thing is usually what I will see is 80% will take that smaller backyard if it's set up for entertainment. That fireplace really made a difference. It was almost 80% said if you added a fireplace, I would take that small lot detached home all day long. But here's the real key. When you think of how much your land values have risen, it will pay for that fireplace. So I know that the response is, yeah, but that cost could be about $2,500 to $3,000. Well, think of the cost that you're paying for land to do 5,000 square foot lots or 6,000 square foot lots versus say a 3,500 square foot lot. It will more than pay for something like a fireplace. And when you make that an included feature, that's a wow. And again, that's not a cost up. That should be a profit long-term. Another really interesting one is just more than half want to pay $3,500 for that porch. And so Craftsman is the #1 architectural style. It has been, I swear, for like the last 10 years I've been doing it. You'll see some shifts in the other architectural styles that are popular for your market. But I've had consumers say, you know what, I would have bought that neighborhood, but I want a porch. And so again, that's somewhat of a socialization thing. It looks cute, but it also is about socialization and engaging to the front yard. Interestingly enough, especially as your young families are growing in your market, and as those young couples are converting over to family, most people think the backyard is the most important, but kids play in the front yard when they're little because they want to meet other kids in the neighborhood. So parents will hang out on the porch and hang out with other friends on the porch. And that socialization oftentimes happens in the front. It's when you have the family gatherings and things like that, or friend gatherings on a Friday or a Saturday night that tend to move to the backyard. But that front yard is oftentimes used more than the backyard for those social pieces inside your community. So really important. Privacy and security is bigger than ever. You saw in that original video just all the stuff that's happening and just how crazy things are. So we're starting to see things like almost compounds where the backyard and the front yard are now pushing to the front yard, but almost, I don't want to say walled off, but it is kind of protected in a more secure way. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples, albeit it's not perfect for Denver, but this is an example in the desert where they actually put the pool in the front yard. But imagine a Denver solution to this, how cool this would be. And it really is fenced off to the side, all the way to the front. You enter through the gate, and this is the front door. And it's just having that really cool entertainment space, but it's the protection and the privacy that goes with that. So translating that for a Denver solution with Denver colors and stuff is certainly important. But even things in having sort of that internal courtyard, this is another example of that. You know, just creating like that Zen space for socialization that's outdoor, especially when we are feeling more cooped up in some of those better locations. You know, the big question is will higher density and attached living kind of fall out of favor? We're certainly seeing that today, how long that stays with us. But I do want to underscore there are great detached solutions up to 18 to the acre. The one I referenced earlier has the 18-inch airspace that gets up to 28 acre. But there's some really neat solutions out there as you pull those, to maybe that first year that we showed in the red, that were your top sellers. And then as you go out to the edges, certainly you're going to want to go detached. But I do suspect there's going to be a continual push out of some of those urban areas just as a result of the concern for not only COVID-19, the riots that happened last year, all those things are just making us want more security and looking for more space, whatever that means to you. Modern interior preferences, I've been reporting this to your group for quite some time. You're certainly a leader on great modern design, but it continues to climb up. So when we look at somewhat modern versus modern, we're looking at about 66% now compared to last year. So it's even going more modern. It is somewhat modern. So when we look at the top styles, and we've got pictures to sort of identify what that is, it's modern, traditional, casual, contemporary. So more of that, I'm going to say like the crate and barrel anthropology sort of a feel. And then the modern traditional is, just cleaner lines and things like that. But keeping it warm and friendly, but we're going to continue to see, I think that, and it's up 20% year over year. On the exteriors, now it's really funny because I hear so many people say, oh, I'm so sick of modern farmhouse. Well, it hasn't gone away. So modern exteriors are now the favorite as well in Denver. It was sort of borderline last time, but transitional and modern farmhouse are the top two styles next to Craftsman. Craftsman always wins because it's sort of a universal, authentic, never goes out style. But transitional and modern farmhouse are there. And this has a little bit more of a modern flair to it. And as I looked at your top 10 projects, there was one community that did a really nice job of bringing in modern farmhouse in a value way, and it was really well done. But even that whole modern farmhouse and Magnolia feel, that sort of black and white natural things are still very, very popular. I think when you bring in modern, you always want to have grounded with some natural elements and color where you can, but we're certainly, I think, going to continue to see this. I think part of this too also sort of calms the soul, just having cleaner lines, more glass, particularly private outdoor space is pretty crucial. Utility spaces and bathrooms, I believe, just based on the qualitative feedback and looking at your data, are going to start to shrink, but doesn't mean the function that they got out of this big room goes away. They still want all that function. So you've got to figure out how to solve for that, because those spaces are shrinking so that we can get more usable interior spaces like the smaller additional office, or how do I make that third place more exciting? How do I actually bring in more pieces? So really making that utility space more functional, I think, is a big deal. And even bathrooms are shrinking, but with style. So again, taking in some interesting new features, smaller, a master bath that would have been much bigger, like the middle one, and even to some degree, this one on the right is certainly going to continue to trend, so we can pull more space back into the areas that we need them, not just want them. So the question is can we start to pull some of those spaces out so that we can bring in, some of those small extra study spaces and get that extra office. The interesting that I've seen in some of the work that we've done from a competitive standpoint is these little sort of 5x7 offices function like another bedroom. So you get the value of having, instead of a 3-bedroom house, now a 3-bedroom plus a study, which really can add a lot of value to the home, and it can add a lot of value to a lot of spaces there. So that's pretty important. So really let them choose things like, do they want the laundry room indoors or do they want another office? I've had multiple consumers say, you can throw my house right now, I'm moving from a resale and the laundry's in the garage and it's fine. I'd rather take that cute little room and could it be an office? And so just give them those choices. I think we'll see more of that. I see in a lot of resales where they'll convert that too. But they don't have to be large either. So if you have the end of a hall with a nice window, use it. Glass and light is really important for some of those small little offices, but really privacy, and the most important part oftentimes is they want to be able to slide a door closed, or it's really the noise kind of bouncing off of each other, things like that. But you can be super creative. Here's a bunch of different office ideas. This was actually put together from Woodley and his team, but making those small skinny spaces, this is super functional. It's definitely as functional as the office I'm sitting in right now. And we're also seeing a push to taking office outside. Now that probably wouldn't happen for you all today, depending on the weather conditions, but being able to create flexible spaces, more choice on how that happens. People want to connect to the outdoors as well. So again, more than ever, we're going to start to see the need for more function, as we saw. So I'm going to show you a couple of different ones. I showed this plan last year, but there's some very specific things that we've even kind of evolved this more. So this tiny little space kind of under the stairs, that could have been a pantry. It could be an office. It can be a cute little sleeping quarters for sure, with some character. But again, just big enough to where you can accommodate a guest, but just small enough so they don't move in and stay. That's definitely a big thing. But it could be a cute little office as well, just off the kitchen. But this is a really functional house, and it's fairly small. It's about 1,600 square feet. But even going upstairs with the office, again, you can have that cute office where, again, sliding that door shut, big deal. Now they did leave the rail open here, but again, just being able to create that privacy off that space is super important. The Amazon drop closet, certainly I know more builders who are really trying to incorporate this in. This is a great format right here at the front. You can actually go in there and still enter from this way, or you can lock that off. But we definitely have seen a huge increase in online buying. Your percentages from 2020 to 2019, I don't think I had to prove that to you. We've all seen that increase just as a result of just frankly the life changes we've had. The other thing you can do with this plan, because this is a 40-foot wide house, you can actually still add on another car. So this is actually a 50 by 60 drawing. So this is a pretty functional home. And then when you add on that additional garage, or it can be a porte-cochere, this could be an outdoor entertainment space, or you can take that and make that an entire rental unit with your 1-car garage. You still have a full drive here, so you can pull into that. But this is a really cool way to actually get that additional space, and or convert that, and you can add more space to that with a cute little kitchen, bathroom, linen here, and so forth. So again, as we talk about the multi-gen plans, make sure you pull those forward. I always try to show a narrow plan, so it's not like this big luxurious house. But again, holding that, the prime real estate for the homeowner, and then being able to show how that space could potentially work. And you'll see on this plan, they actually did a bigger kitchenette. And it just depends on I would option the space, because really what I have found in the research that we've done is they really want to use this kitchen, but something small for the inside. Other things like off the master bedroom, when you go in, you'll actually see just having more space. Again, that's that small study where you can close this off. This is another office. You've got an office here. You can do an office downstairs. Or one of the really big things too, you can have your nursery just off the master for all those young couples converting to families. That is certainly going to be evident over this next year or two. But even just converting that into, imagine if you took that to glass on this wall and made it, you know, the fitness room. This is an awesome fitness room. I would move for this feature, and so many others would as well. So just being able to show them the potential here is just so crucial. So kind of a fun floor plan that KTGY put together. But certainly we're seeing a big movement here on the whole fitness space, or getting fitness done at home because of COVID. And I don't think this goes away for at least a couple of years. We started to see just, you know, I'll show you the numbers on Peloton. You know, just fitness at home has just skyrocketed. So even the small little space on the stair, just being able to show the functionality of that is terrific. If you look at Peloton over time, they actually spiked, of course, right around Christmas. And there was a long waiting list to get it today because so many people are looking for new solutions. And if you look at your gym membership versus doing something like this, and you get to keep the gym at home, it's pretty great. You just have to find the space for it. That's the challenge. I sit next to mine sitting in my office. It haunts me every day. So let's talk about the third place. So the third place is moving on. So things like the wet bar. So wet bars are going up, and those outdoor entertainment spaces are certainly going up. Believe it or not, wet bar is trending up more for those Gen Ys than you would certainly associate it more with the young boomers, because it was a trend more with architecture in the 70s. So this is starting to come back, but it's because we're doing a lot more socialization at home, and I think we plan to for quite some time. Other things are just the whole virtual reality world. You know, this is going to evolve a lot more. Certainly kids and young adults, particularly Gen Y, you know, having sort of those virtual spaces or virtual game places is important, but it's evolving into far more than just games. So shopping, education, I could see this converting education as well. And we predicted what happened last year, and we had no idea, obviously, COVID would happen, but it has transformed entirely. But even work environments and things like that. And it is today's playground. This is how kids socialize today, with 10 to 20 kids at a time. So on the home technology front, I don't have to sell you on this, but I was actually surprised that the desire and the need, or the expectation for technology in the home, actually trended a little lower than I expected. But I think that's because it's no longer a, you know, like a new or a surprise or anything like that. I think it's just so expected. It's like, you know, again, you know, some of those pieces that we used to think was such a premium, and now it's like, well, of course you would have that, of course you'd have a front door, things like that. We talked about Delos last year, and wow, how the numbers skyrocketed just for healthy home. So these are your numbers for Denver. We actually asked these questions last year, and almost 70% in both categories said they'd pay $1,200 for water filtration whole house, and almost 70% said they'd pay $1,000 for clean air in the home. Now, to do clean air filtration, it's probably closer to like $400 to $500, depending on the what you use there. But these are great ways, because I believe your biggest competition is always resale. But in a time like COVID, and even as we come out of COVID, just protecting things like germs and clean air, it's just huge right now. So this should be, in my opinion, this should be an included feature and will really stand apart. And I can prove your consumers will in fact pay for it. We didn't have that last year. Brands matter more than ever. So if you're going to buy a home virtually, and we'll talk a little bit about how acceptable buying a home 100% virtually is, but the reality is buying online, I have to trust it, right? So if I don't know the builder, or the builder is new to me, or I kind of know the builder, but I never lived in, say, Richmond American Home, I'm then going to go to the brands that they put in their home, because those are brands I do know. Those are brands that are going to help me trust whether or not that builder is picking quality features, and the percentages and the desire and the need to have brands they know is really rising. So things like in your bathrooms, even kitchen, color leads dramatically in fixtures and faucets. That's a neat way for your sales associates to say, if you just look at some of the features we put in our homes, you'll start to see what our builder stands for. And I really believe that happens as you're going through that virtual tour with them online, or you're meeting with them in person for an appointment, or you allow them to walk that home on their own time. Just, text them, make sure that they know the little details count, and it matters for us. Other little specialty things just to think about is, again, just that connection to the outdoors, but really bringing in that privacy. So this was a neat example of a bathroom where they actually put the sliding glass door to the side, made a cute little almost solarium here, and brought in some plants and texture, and it just took an ordinary bathroom to a pretty extraordinary bathroom. And this is a 5-foot setback. So to do that where your bathtub is on the side and some of that, the right time of the year can actually be pretty special. But it's private and it's protected, but it's something you won't find anywhere else. Touchless technology, I'm going to tell you, my vote is no. And I know everybody's talking about touchless. You should have it everywhere in your home. Well, first of all, if people are touching your faucets in their home, if they're touching anything in your home, you're going to be exposed. So I don't know about you, but every time I go into any sort of public restroom that has touchless technology, it always breaks down within a year. And so I would say steer from it. I think that is a short-term trend, not a long-term trend. And I think you're going to end up having more customer service issues than not with it. And I do think it's a temporary trend. Other hot trends that are kind of moving up, I reported on this on Trends recently, just the things like living off the grid, which I'll show you an example of next. But even, just that whole farm to table or growing your own vegetables. If you look at trending online, I was shocked to see things like chicken coops that have, and this is nationally too, just that whole sort of living on your own, and again, living off the grid and still being able to do it. And both small and large, by the way, I've seen this all take off quite a bit. Sustainable design certainly is growing. So solar, it's still pretty comparable to last year in net zero, but your net zero numbers are quite high. So nationally, we see those numbers somewhere around 25 to 30%, but in your market, it is higher, close to 40%. But just the whole idea, I think, of living off the grid, again, when you look at privacy, protection, some of the, I hate to bring up the riots again, things like that. People want to know that they can be self-sustainable. So I think we're going to continue to see things like the home battery continue to be more desirable. I would do these kinds of things as an option, but it is kind of a sexy, new, interesting feature to start bringing in amongst all the other things that you can do. Even like the organic farming, to me, should be done at the home level, not necessarily community level, because they don't show well in the community, but you can always find a great little fun area to grow your own vegetables at home, even if you're in a mid-rise. I think that works. So I projected again last year that nesting and isolation will continue to grow, and we have to fix that. So like that bathtub, you know, that connects to the outdoor spaces, or bringing the third place home, all those things. And so last year, my prediction was it's just so easy not to leave the house. You know, whether it's the movies or dinners, or, you know, so many don't need a car today, and all of that stuff. And we were seeing more virtual education even then. But with COVID-19, it's a big deal. So creating things, whether it's an internet to connect to your community and still create those community events without having to get together, but feeling together and feeling, you know, like you can count on this new world we're living in. I think the more and more you can create that, and we'll talk a little bit about that, and just the sales platforms too, is so important. And as we're sort of wrapping up the home piece of it, we're just starting to see color take a bigger role, I think, in the home. So I think it's neutral with strong pops of color, but I do think that color is almost, it feeds the soul today. And so we've seen this transition of a lot of neutrals, but I think we're going to start to see a lot more color moving in just different ways. And again, it's stark pops of color, but I think it's interesting to see how that's definitely evolving a lot more. And it certainly was coming in last year too, but I think it's going to be even more important as you look at 2021 and 2022 as the chaos continues, or as we're pulling ourselves out of that chaos. So really designing for them, give them the tools. I thought what we would do here is jump into some of the sales and marketing things, but really listening to consumers today, because they really can hear each other talk about it. They've got HDTV, they've got do-it-yourself opportunities. It's just huge. And so we're going to talk through some of those tools that are working now, because we just have evolved into all new platforms. So again, going to my introduction at the very beginning, my goal is to kind of share the best of the best that's happening out there. So I thought I'd share some of where we're at today. And we still have quite a ways to go, but it's been an innovating year as it relates to that. So online shopping, we all know that it's a reality in our lives. So 1.8 billion people shop worldwide, 50% buy online versus in person. You know, online sales are huge and just growing like crazy. Projected to be 4.2 trillion this year. Now these are real numbers for Denver. 8% of all consumers that shopped for a home as we went into this whole COVID-19 world said they would shop for a home sight unseen. I've heard builders put numbers really in about the 3 to 5% numbers. So I do think there's more opportunity to continue to grow that, but said differently, 92% won't. And so how do we actually do that right and well, and what are our choices? Another 30%, and this is where I'm seeing more movement, said they would buy online after seeing the home and the lot location. So I do think that there's some opportunities there, and I've seen a particular builder see a lot of absorption created around this platform and allowing people customer access, you know, all the way up till 10 o'clock at night, 7 days a week. So really the opportunity to buy online, I love the idea of being able to go shop at what I want to. Competitive pricing, I get the newest designs, I can really see everything, and I can do it on my own time, right? And I can do feature comparisons. So now you can really check everything. But the challenge is, and the biggest challenge is, it's the biggest purchase you're going to ever make, and you're nervous. Do I know everything if I'm doing it online? What am I missing? Am I getting the lowest price? Because I don't have time to negotiate. Like, I don't get that same feel that I'm going to get the skinny on everything that's going on. But here's the big one. When I shop online, one of the reasons I like shopping online is I know I can quickly return it. I mean, Amazon has made the return process so easy. And how do we do that as a home builder? I mean, imagine if Brookfield Homes is doing some phenomenal things in planning that we did on the recent our Builder 100 program. And I was talking with Adrian Foley, and some of the things they're thinking about in this category are really interesting. But imagine if you could buy a home and return it. Would that change your sales? And how many returns would you really get? Because so often when you invest your time and all of that, you're not as likely to do that. Or imagine if you could trade your home in to get your next home. That's another program that Brookfield Homes is doing. It's pretty phenomenal. But 95% really do want to see that home in person. And for your numbers specifically, it's about 92% won't buy unless they can't. So as you're looking at ways online, just make it simple. Whether it's a master plan or a home, make it just, not 5,000 things on a page, show them what your community offers, whether it's local, how do they shop your model homes, and the whole life experience. And you want to be able to show the visualization of the future. So I love this example that Zillow offers, and it's exclusive to Zillow, where you can actually see the home. We did some qualitative work, and what they also wanted to see was like, well, what's around my house? Is there, how does my lot feel? What's around that? What is the community? How far away? And what's there? So you can actually in Zillow not just have your point there, but you can pay to have the site plan with Alpha Vision to actually put that site plan on so they can really see how that fits into the community. Zillow is the #1 real estate website searched by a long shot, at 66% nationally, and the numbers are equally high for you. But the big thing is you want to tour like you're there in person if you're doing virtual online sales. The very first one is, start at the front of the community just as if they were driving in, and then start at your neighborhood where they can actually see the site plan as if they were driving in. They can see the homes that are built just as if they were driving in. They also can enter the house just as if they were pulling up to the front door. So they stop at the front door. Virtual tours, obviously, of the community, or even being able to sit there and walk around the entire house. If I clicked on that lot in this particular instance, not only could I walk through the front door of exactly that house, but I could also go see the backyard and what's around it. So those kinds of things, if I had to do it in person, if I could do all of that, you're going to see more increases there. And then last but not least, a lot of the things that we're all doing, which is the floor plan where we can choose options, have flexibilities, and make decisions and get pricing answers immediately. That price transparency is important. The #1 reason over 50% of all new home sales are lost because they're too intimidated by, and they don't understand what that price will be, and they're too frustrated to get through that process. When they look at a resale home, they instantly know what it is, even though they'll likely pay more for it. So the more and more you can give them simple tools as if they were doing it in person, give them that control. Oh my God, I've really seen it make a big difference. And I'll talk about one builder that's doing a great job of it. They definitely want a visual view of the master plan, and they want to be able to walk around their home. So I think this tool is pretty fascinating. When you have standing inventory, it certainly helps to sell that standing inventory. Not a big issue today for many right now because supply dropped because we all slowed production in the first half of the year. That will continue to be an issue. And then the other part too is what am I going to experience when I live there? What is, what's life going to be like? That's hard to get when you're doing a virtual tour. But imagine if you had a land plan, whether you're a master plan developer or you're a builder, and you can actually walk that neighborhood, drop your little man down there, and you had a virtual view of any sort of special events or special amenities, and you could see not necessarily what it is today, but the vision for that community. So I do think that the whole virtual videos and things like that are great, but I do think letting them feel and walk that community the way it will be, I think these are things you can't avoid. and just showing them sort of like, why move here? What is it that's great? And in some cases, it's social infrastructure, and in other cases, it's truly physical infrastructure. I also like to throw this one in there too, because I think this can be applied to the builder, not just the master plan developer. But this is a resource that allows you as a builder, if they go in, that they can set appointments up for all of your homes. For the master plan, it's an easy tool to actually offer all of your builders. It's a one-stop shop. I can see instantly what's available. I can set appointments, but it also gives you a communication tool for all of these consumers too. You get to tell them about special events coming up, both virtual and in person. And you can also help the builders to push out invites and things like that. In this day and age, while all of these people should have masks on, it is interesting that people just want to know that people are there. So being able to show little events that are happening, fun things in the community, and they are coming back. I've had people say, you know, I went to that community, I went into the rec community, and there wasn't anybody in it, and it was dead. So I went over to this community and we decided to buy there instead. So being able to show that life when frankly, we're all inside our houses so much more, that's coming is really a big deal. And then of course, things like this is actually, Diane Young shared this is something that Pulte is doing, is not just doing events, but you can do Facebook Live events for grand openings. You can let them do their self-guided tours on their own physically without a sales associate being with them. And then you also can go in and do a virtual tour and have that salesperson walk you through it. I know many of you are doing that today. But what I found, by the way, I'm not a big fan of Matterport in this format. I just think this is so underwhelming as your first impression. And I do think that when you have these kinds of features, you should start in the front door, not looking at that structure. This feels like you're entertaining an engineer and not a customer looking for a new home. But anyways, having that sales associate be able to sort of take you through that home, or texting the sales associate when you walked into that home and alerting them like, hey, don't forget to look under the stairs. There's some really awesome storage there. And I know office is important for you, so check out this area because that can convert, and there's great pieces there. And the function of, I think, being able to text your customers is certainly growing as well, and definitely more appealing, again, than chatbots and things like that. The option program, I've talked about this before. I don't know that I touched on this last year. In fact, I didn't touch on this last year, but this is how you actually can make pricing very, very transparent and just show them, you know, the different things that they can do, what that costs immediately. They literally pick their option, they pick their package, they pick their floor plan, they pick their lot, they've now walked the lot and now walked inside the home. They've done everything that they would do in person. Now I can click the buy button and simply drop off a check or do it virtually as well. Last but not least, when they're walking that home, again, this is another great feature that Diane Young shared from Pulte, is when you're walking that home virtually, when you do it in person, you can always do those silent sales. Well, now to be able to make sure that you're pointing out those little special spaces with silent sellers online is also pretty important. And just having those little buttons that you can push and say, you know, that could be an optional this, or, you know, don't forget to check out the space under the stairs, things like that. All special little features I think that are important. This is actually CBH. They're in Idaho. I think they're probably one of the leaders. They're the fastest selling builder. I think they have like 175 or 165 communities, which for Idaho, that's phenomenal. And they sell very, very well. They have one of the most empowered sales teams, and they actually work from a central sales center. All of their homes are spec'd. So you actually are going to go in and walk this home done. And you can pick any home you want to. You go online, you put your driver's license, and you put in 99 cents to make a visit. You can see those homes anytime up until 9 o'clock. The salesperson is immediately alerted when the person walks through the door. They're identified with a code. And once again, that salesperson can send them sort of a couple of texts. Hey, don't forget, you have it, you can leave some treats in the kitchen, and let them really experience that home on their own. And man, they sell fast. But it makes it super easy, transparent pricing, just a great new sales tool. Going back to that, instead of the 8% that would buy online virtually, this is targeting that 30% that actually want to see it themselves. After they walk the lot and the home, they hit the buy button at home. So now they can go home at 8 o'clock at night, fill in all their information. They put in a small deposit, and then all the paperwork follows. Again, it can all be done virtually as well or in person. So again, providing that uniform platform, just to kind of wrap this up, it's transparent choice in pricing, it's easy comparison, it's online buy opportunities. This is Focus 360 has now taken this into the package program as well. But it's a virtual model on every plan offered. I don't think that's a choice anymore, everyone. I really think if you want to sell that plan, it's so easy to show it virtually. And by the way, it's hard to actually take some of those models and actually convert that to a new community. But this way you can transfer those over much easier. You still need to have your interior designer help you pull all the furnishings and things like that, because remember, interior is the most important feature of your home. So you're still doing all of those really specialty things. And even when you reuse that model, I think it should continue to get freshened up. But I do think this is not going away despite COVID-19. Hopefully, it's going to be a thing of the past by the end of the year. Tools that are no longer a luxury, they're just a necessity. So I'm going to just show a couple of features. This is actually something from David Miles that he worked on with Focus 360. And they're just little things that help bring to life that community when you can't really quite see what it's going to be. So you'll see just a couple of examples, and just the power and the importance of getting virtuals done and really investing there. Think about this. If you spend about $10,000 a plan, $5,000 to actually have the virtual done, you're going to pay a designer to do the interior finishes and things like that. That could be a single incentive in the future, should we see some shifts there. Same thing on the community. Most communities will start out with a much lower premium, and they capture that bigger premium in the next 2 years because those amenities start to take life and they can see them. But if I can see that, it really helps. So again, seeing that lifestyle and how it plays together, but then seeing the true, how is this community going to feel and live, and where does it go? I mean, is it going to be everything they said and promised? Well, when they do things like this, it's pretty tough not to really buy into the reality that this is going to happen. So this was a beautiful example of that, and simple and fast. But having the quality of these kinds of visuals to tell the story that, frankly, you could either get paid at the end of the community when it's all done, or you could get paid on day one, and just being able to show what life's going to be like here. So with that, I'm going to wrap up with, you really have two choices: adapt and prosper, fight and perish. And Denver's been such a leader in the country in, not just the adapt and prosper, but innovate and lead. And I'm just thrilled to be here with you guys this morning. I always like to end with this for our consumers, because we just want to give them all the tools they can to be with the people they love and really where they want to be. And it's spending, that 1,440 minutes a day making life better. So we all have this great responsibility to create better lives. And I hope a lot of that stuff helped you guys. And with that, I'm going to open up for questions. I could do this for 8 hours with you guys. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here for an hour and a half. So I think I want to turn it over there, and I'm going to turn my share off so I can see so we can all see everyone's faces. And we'll turn it back over to all of you. Any questions? Did I stump you? It's Monday morning and it is early. Well, let me ask this. I'd be curious if anybody was willing to share. What was the best thing in as a home builder or a developer, or the best takeaways that you think are new and different that you learned in the last year? Are there new takeaways? And the second thing I'm going to ask you to think about are today, what is the biggest thing keeping you up at night? Does anyone want to jump in and answer the first one? Your best lessons learned? Other than definitely more time with family, for sure.
This is Kristen. I'll say one thing. I think that we learned that the virtual office is effective if you kind of know what you're doing, and there's a little bit less time wasted. I think when you're virtual and you're just kind of focused. And I work in a digital world, so it makes sense for that aspect. Obviously, there's still the people interaction, and buyers want to touch and feel at some point, but we did find that we can work from anywhere a little bit.
That's so important, Kristen, because I actually, for me, feel like not only do I feel like I work more, right? I feel like they're getting more out of me working at home. And that's not a bad thing, because I also feel like I have a better quality of life, even though I still am traveling now and doing that stuff. Just, I feel like I'm just more thoughtful and efficient with my time. So when I really need to be there in person, like if I have to, when I'm working on studies, I walk on every property. When I'm working on product design, I like to be there, with the architect in a charrette. And some of those things you have to do in person, but so much of the people interaction, when you're working through, I would tell you, if I were buying a home, it would actually be less threatening to walk through the door and have you always feel like that person's pouncing on you, right? But it gives you that time to kind of bond and get a relationship going. And then sure, when I see you, I'm a hugger, so I would definitely hug you, that kind of a thing. So I do think it actually, to some degree, makes them feel a little protected to some degree. So great feedback. Anyone else from a business perspective? I've also seen, by the way, and we've seen a lot of this throughout the country, we do division president calls throughout the country. And just the whole on the construction and superintendent side, and just all of those processes and options and things like that, feels to me like that has catapulted into an even more efficient world too. Even, subs coming on site and signing in, and orders and how they're managing that. I've seen huge economies and changes there as well. The other thing too is just the focus on making sure your website is at 110%. We've been spending a lot of time with people really transforming their virtual platforms. While we're not necessarily a marketing company, just my 20 years as a builder and a developer, we spent a lot of time with marketing companies and builders and developers transforming that. So that you do have those tools like you're walking at real life, because it's just, that's not going away. What else? Anyone else?
Hey, Molly, it's Philip. So what concerns me is what's going to happen tomorrow? We kind of ran into that last year, didn't we? So I know we're on the mend, but that's question number one that keeps me up at night. And then number two is, a lot of the demographics you shared today was, you were saying Denver, but I know as Denver and Colorado Springs continue to grow together, how do you see those demographics tied in with the Springs as well as Denver?
Philip, it's a great question. That was my miss. I will add in the Colorado Springs to the deck that we send out. And so we'll make sure that we actually incorporate that. Colorado Springs does tend to certainly be family, but it does tend to attract an older population. I do suspect that those numbers are down for Colorado Springs too, for those young and mature boomers, because of the same safety issues. I'm seeing that trend kind of everywhere. Denver has grown so much in price. We were starting to see a lot of movement, and certainly you guys are probably sick of Californians moving in. I think like a quarter of my family has moved to Denver. And But the reality is that has slowed dramatically because prices are up. But we definitely are seeing some of that wealth was moving in 2019, and we just saw that movement slow quite a bit as well on the older population, right? So I suspect that transferred over to Colorado Springs. But I'll add that in there for you. So good question. And what's going to happen tomorrow? Can you expand on what your question is and what your questioning will happen tomorrow? Because that's a big question, right? So is it home architecture? Hopefully I address some of that stuff from a design perspective where we think it's going to go. Sales platforms, I would tell you, I think we're going to be better, stronger, faster because we've had to be. I mean, we really weren't moving as fast as we could as an industry, and COVID-19 has forced us to transform. Some builders have done it faster than others, but I really believe by the end of 2021, the majority that will have transformed. And I think it actually, some of the stuff that I'm seeing, even some of the stuff that we're doing for Zonda on the access that you're going to have from a data perspective, I'm blown away what they're doing. I mean, it's remarkable. So I think technology is going to be like your right hand by the end. I think we feel like it is today, but you have to muddle through it a little bit more. And then I actually think, and I probably shouldn't say this, but I will, it's my personality. I actually think 2021 by the end of the year could be harder in the housing market than it is today. And the reason for that is I think we're going to see the consequences of not being able to send people free checks and relief. And I think we're going to have to start paying the paper. I do think interest rates are going to stay low. So that's going to be the saving grace in all of this. And if we can keep those rates low, I think we'll continue to fuel. The good news is the supply is so low and we have so much to catch up with that's going to help to buffer. The other big thing that I've been saying now for about 3 years, which is unique to this time versus the last big recession we were in, is we have this great demographic foundation where boomers have, they're hitting that age where they are going to be looking for houses no matter what. It's how we respond to the right architecture that they can afford that is really going to be our responsibility to continue that market to be strong, because we have that opportunity. We just have to be more creative with better, functional, more dense, affordable solutions. On the active adult side or the mature couple side, same thing with them. The youngest boomer is now 56 years of age. In the last cycle, part of what was rough about the last cycle was Gen X was the biggest population, but the smallest population. So there was kind of an interesting thing that happened there where it was like a lull in people having to move. So they just weren't in that stage where they had to move. Well, boomers will move and Gen Y will move. So we have that foundation to serve if we are great about and strong enough on how we plan and serve that product solution up. What else? Did I address all of that, Philip? I mean, did I answer some of the future for you, hopefully?
Yeah, thanks.
Great. What are the things that are now keeping you up at night? So I find these, when we're all together in these groups, I love the educational platform in these, but I think you guys have such a huge opportunity to share and the collaboration of this stuff and really where you want to see really the Sales and Marketing Council bring back more solutions for you. If we could answer more of that, and frankly, if I could answer that more for questions as we launch our next surveys in 2021, what do you want to know? And how can we help you guys solve that? Any questions there?
Mollie, this is Barb.
Hey, Barb.
Hi. This may not be about what keeps me up at night, but I know that there's been a huge increase in online sales counselors. And how do you see that evolving as time goes on? Because I know that there's still quite a few builders that don't have them. And but I think it's a staple in terms of how we need to move forward in this new reality.
Great question. I think initially It's really funny. So we did a homemade event. Gosh, it's about a year and a half ago. And so Cheryl Palmer and Bert Silva and Adrian Foley all got up and they asked the question, do you think we'll ever get to a virtual sales program? And I just razzed Adrian about this the other day. Do you think we'll ever get to a virtual sales program like, some of these other industries? And it was absolutely not. And I think the reason why, and all three of them said absolutely not, by the way. And I think the reason they said that was they felt like it was a threat to the people they were so loyal to and really, they're the core of their team, right? And I think we've learned in this recent year that the salespeople don't go away. They just take on a different function. And I think the salespeople become almost like, as I had said to Adrian, I said, it's almost like a white glove premium service to all things. Let me help you make the right decision. And it's like almost like a concierge to the buying process. So I do think that what happens is just like we're doing right now, like I could literally jump online and I could take you through the community I'm selling. I could take you through 5 other communities that my builder was selling. We could walk the homes together. I can learn about you, bond with you. I actually think it becomes bigger and more important. I think the most important part, and I've had builders approach this differently, the most important part is to make sure that your sales team feels confident that and that they get the training that they need to be able to do that well and effectively. And quite frankly, all those virtual tools that I just showed you have to be in place and easy and seamless to use. So I think the reason a lot of builders haven't, and I've had this discussion with big publics as well as the smaller builders actually, I think have conformed faster because they can, but the bigger publics are moving this huge ship, right? And so I would say move fast as much as you can. Give your sales associates a confidence that it's only going to make them better, smarter, faster. I actually think sales absorptions could improve for the individual sales associate, so they could find themselves selling a lot more. So, how that impacts commissions and all that kind of stuff is really up to the individual builder. But I think most builders approach it as, this is the salary and the compensation we want to see our teams have. Let's put these in place and see how it works, and we'll adjust accordingly. But no question, it's not going away. I think everybody will, and if they don't, kind of like the last quote I had on there, I think they're just going to have humongous missed opportunities if they don't. But the key is getting the right platform in place to be successful, and that includes the training and getting the sales associate and literally having them go through with you. Okay, take me through a home. How would you go through that experience? So, did that answer your question, Barb? Okay, great. Anything else? Like, there, as we talk to where we pull space out of homes, where we put space into homes, that's certainly something I'll be focusing on for 2021. So where I'm hearing a lot of things like, I put the laundry room back in the garage if I could get this, this, and this. We'll be focusing a lot on that. Even on things like the sales platform. We do have in our survey now, would you, would you buy it all online if this? Now we're going to test that, I think, some more visually, like what are those tools that you need? So a lot of focus on home design because that is continuing to evolve. But I don't think you want to evolve it too radically. I would say move with caution and if anything, flexible space, give them choices that can flex that space. So what else? Any other questions or any other things that you want to learn more about in 2021 that we can help be that vehicle for you?
Molly, we had a question in chat from Shelly. Are builders and developers starting to slow down in inventory and spec building and land development to help keep the economy stabilized?
So the answer is Yes, but year end is always like that, right? So we definitely did see a slowdown in November and December, but I think that's cyclical, right? And I think that's normal. There's still tremendous pressure on pricing. I don't think land development is slowing where they can make it happen. I think what has slowed was operationally, and I think most builders regret this, is they sort of turned their business off for 3 months from March, April, May. And then June came and everybody was like, oh my God, who knew? And so I do think that we're catching up, but to answer the question, I don't think that was a conscious decision. I would say January, February, I think we will continue to still see very strong sales. And the reason I think we'll continue to see both strong sales and strong appreciation is lack of supply, low interest rates. And at the end of the day, we still have not caught up for the full delta between what going down 1% to 1.25% does for price. So for example, when I'm doing a pricing study, I just recently did this. I was doing a pricing study in Denver, and I went to actually look at my past study that I did for them, and I raised prices, I think 6%. Well, the monthly payment was lower than the study I did 6 months ago because the rates were higher. So that's the part that's still happening, and customers are just connecting those dots. And the more you can connect those dots for them, it's so important when they're making a decision and they're looking at the sticker shock going, oh my God, I don't think I could afford a $700,000 house. It's like, yeah, but your monthly payment was lower than when we were talking 6 months ago. That's the reality that I think we still have some bandwidth, I think, not only in price, but in absorptions. Does that help?
And we just had one more question that popped up from Richie. There are so many outside factors: lumber, driving costs, price increases. How can you offset these with other features?
You know what? It's a great question. So I spend a lot of time in that very category with builders because I'm always shocked. So I do a lot of product review and plan review. And the thing that I look at is just simple things like no customer says, I really hope you give me more roof lines. I really hope that you spend more money, fill in the blank. So the idea in just understanding what they want, what they value the most, placing it there and pulling it out of the categories where they just don't spend that. Even things like texture, color, the outside of the home is I think it's the cover of the book, and it's really important. And understanding that, the doorknob and the door, that's your first impression of the house. I always hate when I walk a model and I'm like, oh, like I'm already disappointed and I haven't even walked the home because that's where they saved money. It's just really making sure you understand where to spend that money. I just reviewed, and I don't mean to make this a commercial, it's really more about the content of this, but I just reviewed a bunch of product, and the head of construction was mad that we wanted to put front porches on. And I reviewed their plans and we came up with cost savings for them and they could still add the porches, but it's really just making sure. And I think roof lines is one of the most commonly missed opportunities when builders are building that they spend money on, they don't even realize it. So again, it's the balance of where consumers will pay you. What else? Anything else? This has been great, you guys. I think we are at kind of our cutoff time. Is there any other questions that we missed? I probably should have had my chat on. I totally forgot about that.
We just had someone ask for Mollie's contact info. So we will send the recording out of the video to everybody, as well as the slides if Mollie's comfortable sharing those.
Of course.
And,
of course.
So yeah, thank you everyone for joining this morning. And we are looking forward. We have our next event in February. We'll have Marsu back, and she will be talking about time management, which is a great way to kick off the new year. And so with that, happy Monday to everyone and have a great week.
Thank Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thank you, Molly.